Hello friends, this is Preeti Lata Singh, Assistant Professor, Government Girls PG College, Rampur. In the previous part of my lecture on Geoffrey Chaucer, we discussed his life and features of the contemporary age. I hope you were enjoyed and benefited by that part of my lecture. Now I am presenting the second and concluding part, which is related to his most prominent and remarkable work, the prologue to the Canterbury Tales. Student, first of all, we will explore the theme and images of the Canterbury Tales, and we will also discuss the main features of Chaucer's poetry and his true contribution to English literature. The Canterbury Tales is a long poem, and it begins with the introduction of each of the pilgrims making their journey to Canterbury to the shrine of Thomas a Becket. And there are 29 pilgrims who belongs to various rank class of the society of the 14th century England, and they decided to tell their tales to each other in order to pass the time of the journey. And they are gathering at the Tabard Inn. The host sets the rules and he promises a reward for the winner who present the best story. In the beauty of April, the narrator and 29 oddly assorted travelers happen to meet at the inn in south of London. And the innkeeper Harry Bailey decides to join them. He suggests that they pass the time along the way by telling stories. Each pilgrim is to tell 4 stories, 2 on the way to Canterbury and 2 on the return trip. Total 120 stories. The framework is thus laid out for the organization of the Canterbury Tales, but we find there are 24 stories are there in Canterbury Tales. Chaucer's pilgrims, however, are not all traveling for religious reasons. Many of them simply enjoy social contact or the adventure of travel. Here the Chaucer, the narrator, observes all the characters as they are arriving and getting acquainted. He describes in detail most of the travelers, which represents a cross section of the 14th century English society. All levels are represented, and the beginning here with the knight, who is the highest ranking character socially. And several levels of holiness and authority in the clergy are among the pilgrims, while the majority of the characters are drawn from the middle classes. A small number of the peasant class also are making the journey, but most of them as servant to other pilgrims. The prologue to the Canterbury Tales is a portrait gallery of varied people. We are furnished with full information about the characters, their name, nature, vocations, age, etc. The portraits are not only minute but also a vivacious. They are a cosmos to represent the whole of the medieval England, yet they are eternal and universal. They are as living today as they were then. They represent the universal grief, malice, selfishness, jealousy, hard work, laziness, valor, and self-sacrifice and life. And Chaucer, in talking about himself in the role of a pilgrim, assumed the pose of a simple man and devoid of literary presentations, who will simply entertain his readers. And Chaucer is both a pilgrim and the man who is to record the events, including the tales told by the various members of the group. And because of a large variety of characters here, Bantic Smith observes and says, the prologue is a picture gallery, the first and the finest specimen we have in English literature of the characters. And Professor Lois also says, Chaucer's ultimate glory is not his finished craftsmanship, but power by virtue of which he creates through speech and action living characters. Chaucer gives a comprehensive detail of humorous action of his characters. For example, the fashionable squire becomes modest and helpful on the dining table in order to please the knight, his father. And how humorous action it is that the squire has learned horse riding in a short period, for he does not want to display his bravery, but he wishes to impress his beloved. A real humorist is one who takes life as it is without despairing vice or unduly glorifying virtue. He portrayed human weaknesses provokes not only our indignation but also our laughter. And his humor is closely related to his tolerant view of human nature. As Masefield calls him a great Renaissance gentleman mocking at Middle Ages. And the another feature of his poetry is irony. Irony is a conspicuous feature of Chaucer's humor. He uses irony to expose the vices of his characters, particularly the priest we see in his Canterbury Tales, a priest and a nun. The monk is portrayed satirically. He is even more worldly than the prioress. He is fond of hunting, keeping a large number of fine horses in his stable. He never observes the rules of monastic discipline, for they were all old and strict for him. And he has a pin of gold. He wore a most expensive kind of fur on his sleeves. And a mischievous, playful irony is one of the Chaucer's commonest weapon to attack moral flaws like dishonesty, self-deception, and a tendency to deceive others. And these are well portrayed by him in Canterbury Tales. And Chaucer is the first and foremost poet of English literature because of his position, place, range, skill, outlook, and contribution. He founded both the English language and English literature. He was the first humorist, first great storyteller, first great narrative poet, and the first novelist and dramatist of England. So, the students, I hope this session will also help you to understand Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. And if you enjoy this lecture, please leave your comments and queries regarding the topic we discussed today. Thank you.